Okay, hi everyone. Again, welcome to our Sanctuary Cities 101 teach-in. I am really excited. We have some great guests today to talk about this. And first up is Andres Kwan, who is a senior policy counsel with the ACLU of Southern California. Welcome, Andres.
Hey y'all, I introduced myself in the chat when I was one of the fake Danielles. I'm Andres Juan, he, him. Been at the ACLU. I've been a lawyer for almost a decade. Became a lawyer. I was sworn in December 2016, so a month after Trump's first election. And I was, I became an immigrants' rights lawyer. And I was thrown right in, trial by fire, and um, at the time, we had a mayor who was not very strong on immigration. In fact, as soon as Trump was elected, we tried to, we, ACLU SoCal, Planned Parenthood, we asked Mayor Garcetti to meet with us, refused to meet with us. Instead, he took three calls with Trump until we called him out in front of West Side donors. And guess what? We got a meeting. And then we ended up bringing impacted folks, documented folks to meet with his immigration person. And we, at the time, we were demanding Garcetti to be strong sanctuary, to come out and say LA is a sanctuary city. And this immigration person, Linda Lopez, who many of us consider an enemy to the movement, uh, straight up told straight up told us uh, sanctuary is a term that doesn't bode well in the Rust Belt. And we're like, is he the mayor of the Rust Belt or is he the mayor of Los Angeles, right? At the time, if you remember, he was running for, he had eyes on the White House. So, yeah. So that's the background. And we've been working on LA to become a sanctuary city for a long time. And finally, we're able to make that happen about a year ago.
Love it. Thank you so much for that overview of how we got there in LA. And I wanted to just start off, a lot of people, again, we throw the term sanctuary city around. I think there's a lack of clarity sometimes, especially for lay people about what that is. So if you wouldn't mind just starting, what is a sanctuary city? Why is it important?
The main in the gist of it is drawing a bright line between local government, local resources, and federal immigration enforcement. The feds cannot force local governments and state governments to do their bidding. It is at the discretion of local government to choose to do so using local resources, right? So one is to ensure there's a bright line so that we can make sure that local resources, mind you, limited local resources, that a lot of it is going to law enforcement in the first place. And I know y'all, LA4, are very intersectional. And as an organizer, I was an organizer before I went to law school. I think y'all are doing amazing organizing work, and it is truly intersectional. Um, is to make sure that local government resources and the budget is not, and personnel and resources is not used to aid and abet and collude with the feds on immigration enforcement, which is the charge and the responsibility of the federal government. Having said that, it's also to make sure that we and our local government representatives and resources and our taxpayer resources are not used um, eh, to help the feds carry out violations of the law, including constitutional right violations. So um, back in the day, there's this program that started under Bush, second Bush Jr., but Obama took on steroids. So at the time, I think when Obama became the president the first time around in '08, this program called Secure Communities was in a handful of jurisdictions. And then under Obama, it expanded to every jurisdiction in the country. This Secure Communities program, basically the nutshell of it is that um, is data sharing between local government, the states, and the feds. And any time that somebody's arrested, booked, and fingerprinted by law enforcement, that gets automatically shared with the federal government, with DHS, and with ICE. And with that, they get alerted and they sift through a network of databases that they have, a set of databases that they have. And out of this headquarters in Laguna Niguel in Orange County, at a click of a button, they would send this request for law enforcement agencies to hold on to somebody. It's called an ICE hold or an ICE detainer to then hold on to somebody until ICE can come get them in the jail, or to at least notify them and facilitate someone's transfer to ICE for detention and deportation. Now, back, 15 years ago, the LA County Sheriff's Department, and as folks may know, the LA County Sheriff's Department is the largest in the country, largest local jail system in the country. LA County Sheriff's Department was transferring more than 10,000 people a year to ICE every year back in 2009, 2010, 2011. And they were also holding on to people beyond their time of release. And we sued ICE at the time, and we won those cases. We sued ICE and the LA County Sheriff's Department for these practices. And the main thing I'll say is that this set of databases that they have are so error-ridden that they contain and sent ICE detainers on thousands upon thousands of U.S. citizens. So our named plaintiff in our case against ICE was oh my God, I'm blanking. Anyways, he was born in Pacoima, and ICE sent an ICE detainer on him
Oh, wow.
to the sheriff's department to hold on to him and to transfer him. So the thrust of sanctuary city policies is to ensure that local resources are kept for local priorities, in addition to protecting against federal overreach.
Great. Thank you so much, Andres. There's a question in the chat, and this gets to something that I know we've heard from other groups trying to get sanctuary city ordinances passed in their locality, that sometimes the officials there will say, oh, well, it's symbolic because there's already state law about it. So it's just a symbolic thing to do. So I wanted to, if you could speak to, what does a sanctuary city ordinance do that's different from California's commitments, specifically SB 54? What does SB 54 do and not do? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So when Trump was elected the first time, we right away passed SB 54, also known as the California Values Act. The problem with that is, well, while it's protected a lot of thousands upon thousands of immigrants in the meantime, yes, Gerardo Gonzalez. Thank you, Eric. And Eric is a former colleague. It really set a legal floor for the entire state to abide by. The problem with SB 54 is that it allowed for local law enforcement agencies to have discretion to continue to collude with ICE based on a wide and complex set of exceptions for when they can do that, right? So if somebody has a felony, for the most part, a prior felony, for the most part, say the sheriff's department could transfer them to ICE. A vast array of misdemeanors also, priors, could be used to transfer somebody to ICE. And this was very complicated too. So the Santa Clara County Council had a legal analysis several years ago that said that because SB 54 and the exceptions are so complicated, it's often jurisdiction often violate SB 54 and often violate by holding somebody beyond their time of release to do this analysis and then transfer the individual to ICE. And so what we wanted to do is to make sure that these exceptions that we go above and beyond SB 54, especially in cities and counties that had the values and the politics that we could do pass policies like this. Because SB 54, again, is a legal floor for the entire state. So the Kern Sheriff's Department, right? The Riverside Sheriff's Department would have to abide by that as well. We thought, in the city of LA, in the county of LA, and other counties like San Francisco and Santa Clara and other more progressive counties, we could pass stronger sanctuary policies that don't have exceptions, that don't have any carve-outs. And so in LA County, we waged a campaign called the Zero ICE Transfers Campaign, and we passed a policy in September 2020 that completely prohibited ICE transfers absent a judicial warrant and judicial probable cause determination. So we went from having 10,000 ICE transfers from the Sheriff's Department in LA 15 years ago to literally zero ICE transfers in September 2020.
So not symbolic at all, meaningful, very meaningful. This is amazing. We're getting close to the end of our time. I have two really quick questions. I know we have other people that are going to talk, Juan and Liz and Yaritza and Armenia about the challenges of getting a sanctuary ordinance passed, but I know you've seen a lot of them. What would you say are like one of the number one challenges of getting a sanctuary ordinance passed
Um,
that you found?
Local electeds cowering to Trump's threats, mainly, and also not understanding why and how cities and counties can go above and beyond SB 54. In addition to SB 54, also, that only covers law enforcement agencies. And so cities and counties can, through sanctuary ordinances, ensure that no local government resources, not just law enforcement, can be used to collude with ICE. So no access also to private areas of local governments. Now, one thing that it is important to note is that sanctuary cities cannot prevent the feds and ICE and Border Patrol from being in the streets, right, and carrying out immigration enforcement. What we can do, however, is to be watchful and to support efforts to push back against the federal government's violations of people's constitutional rights.
Amazing. And one final question before we move on, but what is the next frontier of sanctuary city protections? A lot of the places we're still fighting for these in a lot of cities in LA County, but for the places that have them, what else? What more can we do?
Yeah, so we need to continue to understand how federal immigration enforcement continues to evolve, in particular with AI technology, facial recognition, surveillance, and we need to be keeping track of that and making sure that we continue to pass policies that track these developments. In addition, we saw, like, for example, the LAPD, even the Sheriff's Department, respond to so-called mutual aid by the feds, ICE and Border Patrol calling for backup when they're usually causing some chaos and in particular, engaging in racial profiling and criminalizing and using force against people simply exercising their First Amendment rights, and then calling 911 and lying about it and calling for backup. Um, what we need to do is to ensure that local police is not sort of uh, falling for this loophole that is in SB 54 because it doesn't cover these situations and not essentially effectively assisting the feds in carrying out these kinds of immigration enforcement operations that violate people's rights and potentially also, and as we saw in Minnesota, use deadly force and kill people simply for exercising their First Amendment rights. So we don't want local police to have nothing to do with the feds, especially when they're lying and violating Angelina's rights.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your knowledge. And now I have the great pleasure of introducing this section is when we're called When We Have Champions. And we have two champions with us today. Liz Alcantar, who is a council member for the city of Cudahy, and Juan Munez Guevara, who is a council member at the city of Linwood. Liz, we'll start with you. I just, we want to know who you are, where your city is. Actually, we have a Paxilio bring up really quickly so we can see. And why was a sanctuary city ordinance important to you? How did you get it passed? What were the challenges?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me first of all, and thank you all for being on at 7:30 tonight. Super appreciate the time. I've been a council member in Cudahy for 7.5 years, and first ran when I was 25. So very, very young when I first started off with a dream and hoping to see some big wins. And it wasn't just myself, is something that I want to mention. I was the first progressive Latina to be elected, but was able to recruit three others. And so there's 4 out of 5 progressive Latinas on the Cudahy City Council, something I'm incredibly proud of. And that's really how we've won big. We've won outside of this sanctuary policy, rent stabilization, eviction protections. We're the first city in Southern California to pass a ceasefire resolution, pushing our Congress member on this issue. We divested city funds from the war machine, and then now we're transitioning our majority Latino working class, largely immigrant community toward a 100% renewable energy future. Because we deserve all the good things. We are in Southeast Los Angeles. I call us the heart of Silla because we're right in the middle. And part of the reason that this was so important was because as I said, we deserve all the good things. Our community is largely immigrant. About 50% of our folks are immigrant themselves. The vast majority of the rest are first generation, like myself and my brothers. And so, we deserve to feel safe in our cities. We deserve to know that our data isn't being shared. As was mentioned by Andres right before, it's not only like public safety that needs to be stopping their data from being shared with ICE, but it's City Hall, it's all city functions, and it should also be our contractors. Cities give so much money to vendors like our trash haulers, our tree trimmers, everything in between, and they should absolutely not be investing in ICE or DHS or CBP. But two, if they collect any data from our residents, whether it's automatic license plate reader on their cars or vehicles, or whether they're collecting applications from our residents, that information should not be shared out to any entity, whether, again, DHS, ICBP, and we should have our residents feel like nothing is being shared out. I will also mention that, folks have brought up public safety as an issue in Cudahy, and so they've said we need cameras. We need AI cameras to detect who is doing the crime, and I have thankfully for years pushed back on this because we know, especially now, that they're sharing that data with federal agencies, which could potentially harm our residents' safety, and bring ICE and DHS to our city, which is something we don't want to see. So amplify the voice, make it loud that we do not need these sorts of tools in order for our communities to feel safer. Yeah. And I also want to give a shout out. Actually, this policy was passed through collaborative governance with SEIU, UHW, California Immigrant Policy Center, Garment Worker Center. All of this was done together. It is not just the politician that passes it. It is community organizations. And so just want to make sure that we highlight that.
That's amazing. And I wanted to ask about that really quickly. Then, did the community organizations, did they approach you? Were you already in contact with them and were like, this is something we can do? Just from a perspective, again, as a council member, how exactly kind of came
Yeah.
about?
A little bit of both. I reached out to them about a different similar policy, ice-free zones, and they were working with Juan at the time to pass this policy in Linwood. And they were like, actually, we want to talk to you about passing this policy Juan has been trying to pass, but in Cudahy. And so we obviously worked on this one together. We have another one coming up soon that we also want to pass, and we want to go be above and beyond for our residents as much as possible. I just want to emphasize like how much is possible when good folks run and they win with support from folks like LA Forward, so that you all can potentially think about running and getting in office and making change in your community.
Love that. Thank you so much, Liz. And in just a second, I'm going to drop both of the PDF of the Cudahy ordinance and the PDF of the Linwood ordinance. you guys can compare and contrast if you like. I think they're pretty similar. But next, I want to turn it over to Juan. Thank you, Liz, so much for your time and for joining us. And we'll hopefully have time for some questions from the audience. Juan, thank you for being here. Would love the same questions to you. How did this come about? Who are you? Where's your city? And how did you become a champion of a sanctuary city ordinance?
Sure. Hi everyone. Thank you so much, Telly Forward, for putting this on. I'm especially glad to be doing this with my partner in crime in Cela, Liz Alcantar, who really has been a leader in shifting the conversation and the narrative about what progressive governance looks like in the Southeast. We are on a multi-city mission to change our region of LA, right? It's historically working class, and predominantly Latino, and it's unfortunately we've not had the best governance, and so we're shifting that and trying to do big and bold things. So yeah, I think I'll say that it first started really through co-governance, right? It's certainly the way that I view my role is working in partnership with folks on the ground, community organizations. And yesterday we actually had a town hall in Linwood with some of those same organizations. Now that we're talking about implementation of our policy. And I said this jokingly, right? But many calls, many things in LA happen with a call from Victor Naro. And so so Victor and folks from the LA Sanctuary Alliance first reached out back in July of last year to try to push this policy forward, and very proud that Linwood is a union town, right? We over 3,000 union members work in our city every day. And so the Garment Worker Center, SEIU UHW, which represents 800 folks at our hospital, the Linwood Teachers Association, folks in our schools, Unidos in Linwood, many groups came together to demand that council adopt this policy. I think as Liz mentioned, right, our smaller cities, right? Linwood is 70,000 folks. We contract out for so many municipal services. And frankly, throughout this process, I learned a lot more about what all those contracts are, and really in the ways in which they end up becoming such binding agreements for our cities that are often unmovable or irreversible in some instances if we don't put ordinances like the Linwood Values Act on the books that give us the power to end those contracts if these contractors are not abiding by our law. So that's really what it was. It's just a very simple premise, right? That our city's taxpayer dollars, right? The thing that we're charged with being responsible for, that they not go to any entity that is doing business with ICE or shares data with ICE. And I will just say for folks that are in the room, it's not the most obvious contracts that are the ones that are most at risk. So for example, our city owns our own email server. Why? I don't know, but we own our own email server. And so we have multiple contracts and multiple things that we purchase pertaining to that. IT contracts, camera surveillance contracts, all these things that are sometimes masked as sort of being necessary for public safety. But some of those companies are not always the greatest. So yeah, I'll say that's why it was very important to pass it. And I know that there's a couple of folks in the room from the Sanctuary Alliance, so of course want to uplift them. Yeah, I think I addressed most of the questions, but happy to answer more.
We have some great photos also up that I think we just took them down. I know that you had shared with some of the people in the Sanctuary Coalition and stuff, and different advocates from the different groups. So love that. Love to see community together. Thank you so much. We have a question, I know, and that actually I wanted to get hopefully both your inputs on, and also Andres, if that would be okay with you to also give your input, which is, hold on here. Yes, that there's a council person in Compton has stated that they're worried about federal retaliation in regards to losing funding. How do we respond? So I'm sure that was something, I know that was a concern for you guys as well. So I'm interested to hear how, of course, practically you guys sort of dealt with that. And then Andres, from the sort of more macro legal perspective, would love that.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer it briefly. When Trump was first sworn in, I should say, he specifically said we're going to take everyone's funding away of their sanctuary. And our city manager at the time called me and was like, "Liz, we have to get rid of sanctuary. We have to." And I said, "That's like," my response was, "Over my dead body." That was my actual response. But I said also, like, we cannot be giving in preemptively. That is a number one rule. To like giving up fear ahead of time before they even do anything is absolutely ridiculous, and we should not be doing that ahead of time for them. That is what they rely on. And so any elected official that has told me something like that, I tell them that. Two, I remind them that if they're not willing to take a courageous step, then they should probably find someone else to run for the position. And I know that's not the most popular thing to say to another elected official, but frankly, I have told myself that the second I lose courage, I need to be gone from this seat. And similarly for everyone else, everyone that runs, it's incredibly difficult to run. You put yourself out there, you fundraise, which is so hard to do. You send mail with your life story and your family's pictures to every single person in your community. And then to not fight for your community sounds so bizarre to me. And so that's the first thing. And we haven't lost funding so far. I'm not saying that we won't ever. And if that happens, guess what? We'll sue. We'll work with organizations like ACLU, like Public Rights Project, like all these folks that are on our side of this fight, to push back and to keep our funding so that we can keep supporting our communities.
I'll just add quickly, if I can, that's perhaps what I did not talk about the most, which is the challenges, because we did also have many challenges. The road to getting to the policy took 7, 8 months, which anyways, frustration that it took that long to get there, right? To build the political support on the council. I will say that this was one of the arguments that we had to face, right? It's just a very easy narrative, and unfortunately, like it really like shielded some members for a while. And so, we I worked together with our city attorney and legitimately looked at this question, right? Like what is our local authority? What does the state law allow us to do? Where are some cases? Where is the Trump administration going? And there's helpful narratives, right? The Trump administration lost many years ago against San Francisco when they first passed one of the first sanctuary policies. Um, Most recently, right? Although not for immigration reasons, but the Trump administration tried to withhold research funding from the University of California, and they lost. So like there's just a record of losing, and so I really pushed on us having to call the question, right? How much of this is just the same old theatrics from the federal administration, where they're just trying to scare people, intimidate people, and how much are we actually going to do to challenge that, right? We got to do things not out of fear, but because we believe in something, and because we believe in defending our community. And so that was really the question that we had to get the council to understand.
And I don't think I have a whole lot to add, except that it's really about courage. We're facing this cowering to Trump's threats. And we faced it in San Fernando Valley, where the city council brought a motion and then shut it down until they found out that the community really cares about it and met the community's wrath at their cowering, and had to come back and pass something. We're facing it in El Monte right now, where the El Monte PD did respond to a call for service from Border Patrol or ICE. I don't remember who it was, and the community is up in arms about that. Um, and Elizabeth and Juan and cities that do pass sanctuary ordinances are in strong legal footing in the event that the Trump administration, in the event, we don't even know if that's the case, right? If they will pick up on it, because especially the more cities pass sanctuary ordinances, I mean, they'll go after the big cities like LA, like San Francisco, which they've done, but they've continued to lose time and time again because the federal government, based on the 10th Amendment, they cannot coerce state and local governments to do the federal government's job. They cannot, right? And I'll put in the chat a couple of resources that might be helpful for folks to read a little more. One from my former colleague, Ahilan, and another from the ACLU National.
Love it. Thank you. Please share those resources. I really love, Juan, you saying do things not out of fear, but because we believe in something. And Liz, just, yeah, sanctuary policies are legal. There's nothing illegal about any of this. So thank you all for your time. I am now going to turn it over to the co-lead / founder of the Immigrant Justice Working Group, Paxeli Marquez. Paxeli.
Thanks, Danielle. And thank you everyone for your time. And Danielle, you're a co-founder as well too. Now we're going to segue into Inglewood, and I'm going to introduce both of our guests that are here today. Herminia Galvez is the CEO and founder of Healing Los Angeles Together, an organization established in 2019 to honor her mother's legacy, witnessing her mother struggle to find support while navigating the complexities of immigration and grief. Compounded by her own later challenges with addiction and systemic barriers, Herminia transformed personal adversity into a mission of service. A certified substance abuse counselor with a degree in psychology, Herminia's roots as an advocacy run deep. She began her work at the age of 17, organizing to dismantle the school to prison pipeline at local youth organizations. And today she bridges the gap between professional expertise and lived experience, using resilience to provide community resources her family once lacked. Through her leadership, she continues to drive meaningful change and healing across Los Angeles. And our second guest is Yaritza. Yaritza A. Gonzalez Rodriguez was born and raised in Inglewood, California, to Mexican immigrants from Guadalajara, Jalisco, and is a proud role model for her two younger sisters. Yaritza earned her BA in geography with a minor in public policy from Dartmouth College and MPP from UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. She currently works as a policy manager at an immigrant rights organization in Los Angeles, where she advocates for policies that advance immigrant rights at the federal, state, and local level. Yaritza is also the co-founder and co-director of ING Fellowship, whose goal is to inspire, nurture, and guide young people in Inglewood, California to organize, mobilize, and address different issues that impact the community. In her free time, she enjoys hiking and running throughout Los Angeles with her husky, Oreo. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here today. And I will pass it over to you, and I'll share the screen in a moment for your slides.
Thank you for the introduction, Paxeli, and for moderating this and inviting us both to speak.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, we're just letting it load a little bit. All right, well, thank you everyone for being here and hearing us out as we talk more about the ICE raids that have also been happening in Inglewood. As you all know, a lot of the ICE raids started since last summer all over the county of LA and also across the country. And so we really just wanted to take the time to also share a little bit about what's been happening in Inglewood since last summer as well. So we can go to the next slide, please. Oh. There you go. Okay, so a lot of the ice raids in Inglewood have mostly been happening in familiar places, as you all have maybe seen in other parts of LA County. A lot of them focused on in Home Depots, car washes, and also outside of grocery stores. And you can see a map here of all the places within Inglewood that they've mostly been doing these ice raids. So starting in mostly, as you can see here, in the southern part of Inglewood, in District 3 and 4. That's where a lot of the populations and are highly Latino. And we've been seeing also, though, not just Latino immigrants being kidnapped, but also Black immigrants being kidnapped in these places. So it's also really important to highlight the solidarity across the different communities that make up a lot of the demographics in Inglewood, which is primarily Black and Latino, and like really being able to highlight the fact that this has been happening since last summer. And at first, when the ice raid started happening, it was really in the area where it was bordering the Lenox and Inglewood area, which is an unincorporated city. Lenox is an unincorporated city that is overseen by the county. And so a lot of the times when we were, a lot of the rapid response networks that were being out there and doing the work on the ground, they were really highlighting those that were happening there. But it wasn't until much later in the summer that we were able to really capture the ones within the city of Inglewood's jurisdiction. So if you go to the next slide, you can see some of the ones that happened in August. So like I said, it started in June, but all throughout the summer, as we saw all over the LA County, they were happening. And in August in particular, we saw back-to-back ice raids happening all over, especially in the Home Depots and the car washes. And so as you can see here, there was one on August 12th, then August 18th, and then August 25th. And that led to community going out and giving public comment and really raising awareness to our city council and mayor so that they can be aware that what's happening on the ground, since there was a lot of different videos and photos being shared throughout social media all summer. But this was the footage that we were able to really share and be able to show that there was happening. So if you go to the next slide, you can see all the efforts that we took to try to give public comment. Inglewood City Council meetings are every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And so it was just a few people that would go out and give public comment because it is a barrier to try to be able to go on a Tuesday at 2 p.m., whether you're in school or work, to be able to go and give public comment. But folks did go out and, put it on the record that these things were happening all throughout August. And then after that, in response to the one that happened in August 12th, the very first one, where it was captured at the Home Depot on Century Plaza. If you go to the next slide, we then, invited the city council and the mayor to these events. So I'll pass it over to Arminia to share a little bit more about those efforts.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much, Arisa. So starting in August, we started, doing efforts of, gathering together Yaritza ING Fellowship and Hill and other co-partners, organizations, starting doing efforts, inviting local officials to join and participate. And if we go to the next slide, you will see that we started attending and doing our meetings by August. So we started doing bi-weekly meetings with the community, meeting with the community to hear their concerns, to hear how they felt that we're being supported, to just understand, what was happening in the community, what was the voice of the community, what were their needs. So as we began meeting a fellowship, ING and ING Fellowship and Healing Los Angeles together joint efforts in doing these community meetings throughout the city of Inglewood. And we joined forces to start creating these meetings for the community. If you go to the next slide, you will see that we also started attending hours to office hours to see some of the officials, to be able to meet with them and speak to them regarding what was happening throughout the city. And if you go to the other slide, you will also see that some of us attended some of the town halls, trying to have conversations with them, just to understand, and speak to them about what was going on and what was happening. We also sent emails, we attended council meetings, and we had a lot of efforts trying to speak to our city councils and just trying to navigate this and meet with them, and just efforts of trying to communicate with them what was happening throughout the city and how the community was being affected. If you go to our next slide, um, this is Yaritza's, right?
Yeah, so, after doing all of these different efforts to really get the attention of the city council and the mayor to know what was happening on the ground and really come up with, through these community meetings since August, trying to come up with what are the community demands, what are the real needs that we really want. And based on a long list of different things, the top two that we really set forth were trying to pass a sanctuary ordinance, as well as trying to create some sort of fund that provides legal, food, housing assistance, since that was something that we were seeing a lot in our city. And, there was limited resources and from different local nonprofits to be able to provide to meet the demand of like how much was needed. And what really then led to the city council and the mayor putting out a public statement during a city council meeting was this particular ICE raid that then took place at the beginning of this year. So in January 13th, there was a series of different ICE raids happening all throughout Inglewood and neighboring cities in the South Bay, that not only detained community members, but also workers of the city of Inglewood. And that caught media attention from a local news outlet that just started, LA Local, and they were able to really capture it. Beyond that, before that, a lot of the things that were captured in terms of these ICE raids that were happening since last summer were through our local rapid response networks like the Hill Network, that was putting out the videos and the photos. But then when we got this local news outlet, we were able to then be able to capture it more through a bigger audience. So if you pass over to the next slide, this media coverage then led to this article where they asked more questions, and they were able to speak not only to Edminia and myself about the efforts that had been going on since last summer, but also direct to someone that was directly impacted from the community where her family member was taken. And she was very courageous enough to speak on this issue to the media and really put her story out there and her family's out there to then be able to raise more awareness on the issue. And so this then led to the mayor, doing this interview with the local news media outlet. And then based on that, the next following city council meeting, folks were going to turn out to give public comment in response to these January 13th ICE raids. And if you go to the next slide, so the ICE raids happened, like I said, January 13th, but then the two meetings after that, they canceled them. And so folks weren't able to turn out until February 3rd. That was the day that folks went to be able to give public comment. And then following that again. And that was really what led to the city council and the mayor giving a public statement and finally addressing the ICE raids publicly. And as we continued to go to give public comment, that a lot of the concerns that came out of these conversations we've been having still with the community meetings was that Inglewood is becoming a global city. It's hosting really major events like the FIFA World Cup and the Super Bowl now, and also the Olympics back to back to back, starting with the FIFA World Cup this summer, and really wanting to raise more awareness on the issue because in the past, in the last Super Bowl that was hosted in Inglewood, there were folks that saw ICE presence, and there were folks that were started to raise awareness of like, how is this something that we can make sure that there are policies in place so that there's more protections for our community members. So that's what, again, the very last time we've gone as a group has been in March of this month, to be able to give public comment again in response to an interview that the mayor did, where they asked him about, the potential presence of the FIFA World Cup. And so really wanting to address that to him directly and seeing what is the plan in place for when the FIFA World Cup arrives this summer. So if we go to the next slide, just very quickly, the last thing, again, like that's what led to them finally giving a response and making a public statement. And so now we're in the process of seeing what more can we do moving forward to continue to add that pressure to have them not only provide a public statement, but also act on the things that we've been asking for as a community, given that we're getting closer and closer to the summer where these big events are going to start. So that's why we're calling on all of you to join us and being able to join our week of action that we're planning for the month of April. And that's going to, if we go to the next slide, we'll go quickly again over the different dates of what we're going to be doing. So it's starting April 13th and going to April 18th. So on Monday, April 13th, we're going to have email text banking to try to get as many people as possible to submit written public comment. Because again, we know the challenges and the barriers there are to having a city council meeting on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. So if people can't physically go, we're asking for folks to submit written public comment, and we're going to be sharing a toolkit really soon so that folks can be able to do that with the language and everything that the talking points. And then the next day, on the actual day of the Inglewood City Council meeting, we're asking folks that are able to make it to go in person to give public comment. And then the following day, gearing up and getting ready to make posters, because we're going to have 2 actions following that day. A vigil on Thursday where we're going to go back to the Inglewood Home Depot on Century Plaza, where a lot of the ice raids have taken place, to be able to just like raise more awareness, bring more people out, and be able to really talk more about how all this has been impacting our community and what we can do to continue to do the work on the ground, as we also advocate for these our elected officials to do something as well. And then finally on Friday, we're thinking of doing a protest at Inglewood City Hall. And then the last thing to celebrate, all the efforts that we've been doing since last summer, to really commemorate all the work that we've been planning for this, and also talk about next steps in terms of a community celebration at a local restaurant here in Inglewood, where we've been able to, really build a relationship with them to host this community celebration. So we hope you all are able to join us to one or a few of these, because we really would like more support from not just Inglewood residents, but also people from all over LA County, because this is an issue that impacts all of us. Like we said, it is Inglewood is becoming a global city, and as much as we are having people go through to get to the airport, as was said, but also being able to have people feel safe from all over to come to our city. So we really want to push for the sanctuary ordinance more than anything. And so we've been, in communication as well with the LA Sanctuary Coalition to make sure that we're able to have support from all of these organizations that have been doing amazing work all over LA to pass these sanctuary policies. And I know we're over time, so I'll pause there. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. A huge thanks to all of our speakers. We really appreciate the time and expertise, and all the work you've been doing. So that's the main thing. And then if people want and have time, we will stay on the call for a few minutes if people who are outside of Inglewood want to talk about passing sanctuary city ordinances in your communities. So if you want to stay on, you're welcome to. And I'm dropping in the chat. I know, I think the Week of Action document has been going around, but want to uplift that. The LA Forward Immigrant Justice Working Group will be specifically supporting the public comment action on April 14th that was mentioned. And then also, if you're interested in joining our working group, there's a link in the chat. If you're interested in the link to our monthly meetings, of which our next one is next week at the same time, same place, same day. And then I believe the link to the Q&A and also collaborating about sanctuary city work in other communities is in the chat as well. And then two other things to uplift that the Immigrant Justice Working Group will be involved in is the Home Depot action on April 12th and the Right to Counsel in Deportation Defense Teach-In on Thursday, April 23rd, 7 p.m. Same place, same time.
And I'll just add really quickly, if anyone wants to be involved in either of those on that Q&A doc, again, just put which one. There's a chart at the very big bottom. You can drop your name, you'll drop your email address and like which one, or both, if you want to do both. Yeah. Oh, great. Someone's sharing it. Amazing. So yeah, so the top chart is for if you want to, if you have interest in non-Inglewood communities. There we go. Abby's already signed up. And the bottom one is for additional, if you want to participate in Home Depot. And again, we'd love to see people join the working group. I've turned out and we gave public comment for Linwood. We did things like that to support some of these actions, and we'd love to have you with us. Thank you to all the presenters again. Thank you to all the people who facilitated Sky. Thank you so much, Matt, who was monitoring chat, Godfrey, Paxilli, and yeah, hope to see you all soon again on a different meeting.
Thank you, everyone, and please support Inglewood's efforts. Again, the link is in the chat to register for any of the days that you're available. Any support is greatly appreciated. Even just sending an email for written public comments takes just a few minutes. And again, we'll be sending the toolkit to all of you in the next week or so. So that way it has instructions, language, all of that. So thank you so much again to all of our wonderful guests for being here today. Thank you so much for your time and effort and all the work that you've been doing. And thank you to everyone for being on this call. Again, really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.